Hi, my name's Fay Roberts. I'm a performance poet living in Cambridge. I've been writing poetry off and on since I was quite young. A lot of people experiment with poetry, but I didn't really start writing it properly until I moved to Milton Keynes. And I wrote a couple of poems for a friend's magazine. This would be back in 2004, 2005, something like that. And then my friend decided he was going to have a poetry slam, which is a competition where people get up and perform within a certain amount of time, and they get given points by judges and move through rounds, competing against each other. And I came along just to make up the numbers, didn't think I would get very far, and I didn't even have that many poems to do. I even did an old song. I don't know whether it was because it was full of swearing or whether it was surprisingly angry, but yeah, that kind of got me through to the final, at which point I ran out of poems. But by this point, it was like someone had lit a fire in me, and I was like, wow, this is actually something you could write poetry for, to perform, because I've been a performer since I was tiny. I've been singing since I was 4. Allographic takes in... Basically, we're trying to raise the profile of people and of words and of notions that the public may not have heard so much for whatever reason. They've not come across this work, whether it's because the person who's doing it is in a group that doesn't get fairly represented on the spoken word scene, or whether it's because the kind of notions they're putting across are difficult or interesting or different. Or just for whatever reason they've just not had the exposure yet, and we want to make sure that more people hear from them. So we have a small poetry magazine. We put in poetry and stories and artwork and photography and listings, even though it's tiny, just because again we can't just stop at one thing. We have live events which focus mostly on the open mic. It's more about bringing people up onto the stage who wouldn't necessarily get up very much, with the occasional features. And we have special events where we have slightly bigger names coming along and showing off their stuff to the people of Cambridge. As I said, I also run Hammer and Tongue, and Hammer and Tongue is a national slam organisation democratising the idea of poetry, so that it's not just about ivory tower notions of what poetry is, but we take people from the audience and we say, will you be a judge for the night? And quite often they say, oh, I don't really know anything about poetry. And we say, oh, okay, but you'll know how something makes you feel, you'll know how much applause you want to give it, you know what it means to you, what that person's just got up and said, so give it a mark out of 10. And people really get engaged and they love it, and people get up. What I love is when people get up and they've never performed before, or they've been writing poetry for 10 years and they've never shown anyone, and this is the first time they've got up and said it out loud, and they're shaking and they're grinning and they're terrified, and it comes out and it was amazing for them. The audience is shared in something brilliant, and they come off going, oh wow, I'm going to do more of that. Yes, that was fantastic. That's the one part. The other part is where people turn up maybe because they saw it in a poster and it was a cheap night out, or their friends dragged them along because they like poetry or they're performing, and they come up afterwards and they say, do you know what, I used to hate poetry, and now I'm going to go away and read more and come to more nights and tell me more about what's going on in the rest of Cambridge. So yeah, that's great when you can change someone's mind about something just by how you've presented it. That makes me excited, you know. So we've got all these converts to poetry turning up and then spreading the word. It's exciting.